So we just saw another Democratic debate last night. Very exciting stuff. So I wanted to get into that a little bit. We have another primary happening this weekend. And then after that is Super Tuesday. This is the last debate before either of those. Very exciting. We should be seeing some big changes coming up here pretty soon. So thought it'd be a good time to cover where we are now and then see what happens coming up here in a week and a half and where we all end up. And what happens is can be big news for the Democrats and the future of that party. So very, very interesting stuff. I want to start with Bloomberg, the new guy. So if you don't know who that is, you haven't seen very many ads. He is spending records amount of money on ads. He is a self-made billionaire and spending crazy amounts of his own money to get into these debates. So he had his first one in the last debate, which was just last week, and then he came into this debate, and he is not on the ballots until Super Tuesday. So he haven't won anything yet. His polls were looking really, really good. He had a really bad first debate. It's just kind of unanimously called a failure for his campaign, and his polls started dropping a bit, so they left him alone a little bit more this turn, but he still took enough hits and had an interesting debate. So it wasn't quite as many fumbles and muttering and missed words this time. He did have one big moment that was a Freudian slip that is being made fun of a lot, but he also said something else that was trending on Twitter, so I thought that was interesting. So in last debate, if you saw that or know anything about that, Elizabeth Warren came after him about non-disclosure agreements that he has from his years in business, and she claimed that it was with many women that she believes he assaulted or made uncomfortable or was sexually inappropriate, something along those lines, and that they were all bought off, and she wanted him right there on the stage at that moment to release everyone from all non-disclosure agreements, a blanket statement, so that we can hear the other sides of the women who he allegedly abused. So she brought it up again this debate. It was a whole thing, and he said that he had already released the non-disclosure agreements. They went through all of them from his many, many years of business and found 3 that were about him personally and released them, and said he didn't know what else Elizabeth Warren wanted from him, but he was changing his policy with his companies on using non-disclosure agreements going into the future, and that he hoped that would change all businesses for the better in the future, which was a really decent answer considering his last debate's answer was, I did not do anything except maybe somebody didn't like a joke I told, which brought gasps from the audience. So this was a much better response, and she kept yelling about it, and it kind of, I thought, made her look a little petty, to just keep beating that dead horse that I don't think many people cared about anymore. So anyway, they also asked him while he was up there if he believes he had done something wrong by telling these jokes that they had to do non-disclosure agreements on, and he said that he didn't even remember making these jokes. They had happened so long ago, but if he did make somebody uncomfortable, he must have been in the wrong, and he wants to apologize for that, which Bloomberg is king of apologizing. That's all he's been doing since he entered the race, apologizing for all sorts of things. So anyway, he's good at it now. Then Elizabeth Warren brought up taxes and wants him to release all of his taxes so she can look over those. And he said that he knows that's what she wants, and they're working on it. They have to figure some stuff out with lawyers and stuff like that. Which Tom Steyer, the other billionaire, said that was crazy because he could release his a lot faster. And then everybody seemed to move on from that as well. I didn't get the feeling anybody cared. So we'll see if people care about that or not. They also asked him about his policies because Mike Bloomberg used to be the mayor of New York. He was the mayor during the 9/11 attacks, and he was mayor for 12 years. And while there, he banned restaurants from selling anything with trans fat in them, and he was trying to ban large sodas. And I don't think he never got that through. but they asked him if that was something that was going to be important to him on a national level. He replied that he didn't think things that applied to his state would apply to the entire nation, that there's a lot of differences between many different cities. And he said not every city has a naked cowboy, which I then proceeded to look up because I didn't understand what he was saying. And they have a guy who calls himself the Naked Cowboy, and he wears underwear in downtown and has a big cowboy hat and plays guitar and sings, if I understood that correctly. And Naked Cowboy was then trending on Twitter for the evening. So he was trending. So the other thing, the one slip up he did have that everybody's making fun of is that Elizabeth Warren went after him again about how he used to be a Republican and he put a lot of money behind different Republican candidates who were, guess, pro-life, into House and Senate seats, and that he supported somebody who was running against her at one point. And he responded that in this last term, he supported the 41 Democrats who got into the House and claimed that he bought their seats and that he was the one who got Nancy Pelosi into power. Then he said, I'm the one that did that. I'm the one that bought that. I mean, got that. So that's mostly what he's being made fun of, that he thinks he bought people in the House. So instead of like saying I supported their campaign or something a little bit more PC, I don't know. He thinks he owns a house. So, also Elizabeth Warren, she was really going after him again this time. I think she felt like she got points after the last one, even though he's not much in her lane and not much of a contender for her. She seems to think she ought to pound him. So she was talking about getting pregnant when she was a school teacher, and that when she was visibly pregnant, she got let go and she had no one to protect her, and that at least she didn't have a boss who told her to kill it. So there's a rumor that Bloomberg, when a woman wasn't making it to meetings on time or something about her job performance was affected by being pregnant, he told her she should just kill it, which that has not been confirmed. He says he never said that. And then Ben Shapiro says that Elizabeth Warren is making up stories about being fired for being pregnant. That has not been corroborated on any sort of account, and everybody says she made that up to make her, she's just making up her own history, which Elizabeth Warren is known for lying a lot, so I wouldn't doubt that much. With his bad performance in the last polls, debate, he is going down in the polls. We'll just have to see how the money and his performance pans out as in terms of votes come Super Tuesday. So the only hit that I remember him really getting in was saying that Putin really wants Trump in office, and then there's all these new things about Russia backing Bernie to be the nominee, and that they're helping his campaign, which Trump has said in press releases that nobody told him about that, and leaking it to the press without him even being informed on this was kind of crazy, and they need to stop the leaks. He's pretty sure Adam Schiff is the one, he called him out by name, that is leaking these things, and it is entirely inappropriate. So that's what Trump has to say about it. And Bloomberg said that Putin wants Bernie to be the nominee so that he'll lose to Trump. And Bernie said, Mr. Putin, I am no friend of yours. So then we all moved on. All right, Pete had an interesting night. I was trying to remember. I thought, he seemed to have a good night. He didn't do anything horrible. But then when it came down to it, I couldn't remember much of anything from him. They asked people what their biggest misconception was at the end, and he said that his biggest misconception is that he's not passionate, but he thinks he's so passionate he has to keep it toned down, and he's worked hard to become level-headed because of all of his passion, and that's what he said. So he is called the White Obama, because he seems to be copying Obama exactly. Even some of the things he says are word for word verbatim things that Obama said during his campaign and presidency, and he likes to use the same tone of voice, the same cadence. similar statements. He seems to be just completely copying him. He did go after Bernie during the thing about the math to pay for all of the things Bernie is promising. And we never got anywhere with the math. We had to move on to other topics. So then anytime Pete got the microphone, he likes to say, hey, can you imagine having Bernie and Trump going at it for the rest of till November? This is going to cause chaos. We need a moderate. I'm a moderate. That seems to be his whole shtick about the whole thing. Also, he likes to say that we're all going to lose everything if Bernie is nominated. He says the House will turn red, the Senate will turn red, and we'll lose the presidency if we nominate Bernie because he is not popular amongst all voters, just his voters. Yeah, I don't know. That's what he did. All right, Bernie was immediately asked to begin the night, what do you think about the economy and how the unemployment rate has dropped drastically, especially in South Carolina where they were at? And he said, this economy only works for the billionaires, and just went after that whole shtick like he always does, even though low unemployment is good for people who don't have jobs. That wasn't really addressed. It was just, it's only good for billionaires. So the biggest thing about his performance in that night is that he was criticized for having praised Castro, a brutal dictator, if you don't know, in Cuba, and that he had good literacy programs, and that he thinks he has the right to say good things about dictators because they can't be all bad. And that has made a lot of people mad and seems to be what people are talking about a lot. This is not a new thing. Bernie has supported and said very many good things about all sorts of brutal dictatorships and authoritative regimes. So the House Republicans have come out with a resolution that they're taking to the House tonight, and they did a whole press release on it, a resolution to condemn Bernie's support of Castro and to support the Cubans who have fled from there, who are now Americans, and to just overall condemn his behavior towards this regime. And all news outlets are talking about how if Bernie's the nominee, he's just completely lost Florida to Trump, because Florida has a lot of Cuban refugees and Cubans who are still affected by their family members, their loved ones being locked up and abused by this regime. And to have somebody who thinks they have a great literacy program running just would lose so many votes, it'd be impossible to win Florida, which is 26 electoral votes. He wouldn't say how he's going to pay for everything, and when asked what his misconception was, he says that the misconception is that his ideas are radical. They are not radical. They have been implemented in different countries in different ways all around this world, and people need to realize it's not radical, it's just common sense. So that was his night. His supporters on Twitter seem to think he won. He's the front runner. He just needed to get out of this alive, and it looks like he did. Didn't make any too big mistakes. The Castro thing isn't new, so didn't really affect his numbers or anything. We'll see this weekend if it did. Elizabeth Warren. Everybody's saying that her campaign has switched from trying to win to trying to get a vice presidency spot. She seemed to be very nice to Bernie throughout the night. The one thing she did hit him with was that they had similar platforms, but that she could actually get it done, that she was more of a fighter than he was. She went after, like I was saying when I was talking about Mike Bloomberg, she went after him a lot, just looked really petty. She said her misconception was that she's too skinny, but she doesn't eat, but she does eat. And yeah, that was her night. So very interesting. Joe Biden. So everyone's concerned about Joe Biden's brain. Pretty sure he's getting Alzheimer's or something. Just this week, he told donors that he was running for Senate rather than for presidency. and then said if they didn't like him, they should vote for the other Biden. So he seemed to be a little bit more on his game during this debate. He didn't say anything crazy. He didn't say he knew where he was. He seemed to be kind of aware. The only crazy thing he said is he was going after Bernie on his voting for gun reform, because Joe Biden had a bill where you could sue gun manufacturers when people got shot with the guns that they made, and Bernie voted against that. Bernie's response was, yeah, I mean, I didn't vote perfect all the time, but the NRA has given me a D- in voting now. So, and if I become president, it'll become an F. So that was his response. Joe was saying he didn't vote well enough, and that since he didn't vote for his gun reform bills, 150 billion people have died. That's like more than all the wars combined. It's like impossible. Like that many people haven't died from natural causes since 2007 when this bill was made. So that number was a bit crazy. Nobody said anything about it in the debate. It just got completely skipped over as he's ranting and raving about all the carnage in the streets. A fourth of the entire population is dead from gun violence, and Bernie didn't stop it, and nobody seems to say anything until you get onto Twitter and everybody's just like, oh my goodness. That doesn't make any sense. So he kept getting cut off, he thought, about getting to talk. There was a lot of talking over each other, talking loudest, trying to get some attention. And he kept saying, I'm getting mad. I need to be able to talk. And that was what he kept saying. And then he would get a chance to talk, and then he didn't really say much. If he doesn't win South Carolina, everybody says he needs to drop out. So we'll see if he does. We'll see if he wins. We'll see if he doesn't. If he drops out, what's going to happen with that? I hope for his own health he drops out soon. He just doesn't seem up for this rigorous of a schedule. And I'm concerned about his brain activity. It's not good. So then we have Amy Klobuchar. So I don't remember much of what she was saying. She's kind of forgettable. Her big misconception about her campaign is that she's not boring. She has good ideas, or I don't remember even what she said. I find her very boring, so I think it's funny that that's what she was concerned about. In her last debate, she was getting the names wrong of the Mexico president and the delegates she was dealing with. She was dealing with in her job as a senator when she was doing trade deals and business deals with Mexico. She doesn't know their names. And then she had them written down in front of her, and she mispronounced all of them. Or not all of them, just the president's name. So that was kind of embarrassing. Nothing like that happened this time. She said a lot about how she got a lot done. She got gun reform done. Her and Joe Biden argued about who got what done for a minute, and then that was over. So yeah, we'll see. Tom Steyer, who's the other billionaire, is back. He was in this debate out of nowhere. I don't think he's been in a debate for a while now. And all of a sudden, he's back. Don't really understand about that. They talked a bit about prison reform because he owned a private prison for a minute. That's what Joe Biden brought up. And then he went on and on about his prison reform. Then he was talking about Bernie Sanders and how he has the problems right, but not the solutions right. And then he's polling pretty high in South Carolina because he's put millions and millions of dollars into that. So we'll have to see if he can actually get some delegates out of this. He doesn't have any so far. And then we'll see if his campaign is back to dead or if he's going to keep stumbling along. We'll see. We have not had this many people in the debate at this late in a season, like this close to Super Tuesday, since 1950. So it's been, what's that, like over 60 years, 70 years? 70, just about, yeah, 70 years since this has happened. So the debates can get crazy and chaotic. All the news outlets are saying it was a dumpster fire, it was terrible, you couldn't get anywhere with anything, which probably has to do with how many candidates are on that stage. How are you supposed to talk about anything 2 hours later? And people have gotten like 2 tiny little sound bites in, and that's about it. I loved it though. I thought it was great. Can't get more entertaining than this. So something to pay attention to. We'll see how it all goes. All right, that's it for now. Bye.